the biggest news of the day is the coaching carousel. Excuse me, not the coaching carousel, the quarterback carousel. Some of the biggest names on the market, we now know what's transpiring with them. It started earlier today with Tom Brady initially making his announcement that he will not be back in New England. A short time later, Drew Brees and the Saints reportedly agreed to a 2-year, $50 million contract. Teddy Bridgewater, it looks like, is headed to the Carolina Panthers as they are ironing out the particulars of a 3-year contract. And just minutes ago, as you heard there in SportsCenter as we came on the air, looks like Phillip Rivers is headed to the Indianapolis Colts on a 1-year, $50 million contract. So a lot going on, the most important position in sports, and we're following it here today. Let's begin, though, as it pertains locally to the Saints with both Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Brees. So the news is Brees gets his deal done with the Saints. Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network, here's him explaining the particulars of Drew's deal with the Saints.
Never in doubt, but now official for the New Orleans Saints. Sources say that Drew Brees and the Saints has agreed to terms on a 2-year deal worth roughly $50 million, similar deal to what he got last time. And if you remember just the structure of that, it was $27 million guaranteed. That was the first year, and you know they also had a couple years tacked on at the end just for cap reasons. They may do the same thing, but Drew Brees clearly could have commanded a lot more. He could have sought offers from teams. He could have talked to anyone. He was a free agent, just like Tom Brady. But that was never the case for Drew Brees. He made it clear he was going to retire in New Orleans, and it does sound like he took less than he could have, did not push a hard bargain, just to make sure that the Saints have enough room, enough cap space to go out, talk to some free agents, and try to improve the team around him.
All right, Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network. So a couple of things. Brees turned 41 in January, and it was really important for the Saints and Brees to get this deal done before the start of the league year tomorrow, because that voids the dead money under the cap, under the old contract for this year. The Saints would have been sitting on $21.3 million in dead money from Brees' last deal had they not gotten this deal done at the start of the league year. So it was imperative that they got this deal done. Otherwise, it would have been futile if they hadn't done this, because it wouldn't have mattered for any cap or cost-saving measures. So the Saints only had somewhere in the neighborhood of $7.5 million in cap space. Now you void that year, the final year of Drew Brees' contract under this new deal. You kind of kick the can down the road. So the Saints get a much-needed cap relief so they can not only sign their own free agents, but also be competitive in the open market for whatever free agents they'd like to sign at the start of free agency tomorrow when the league year officially begins. So a couple of reactions to Drew Brees' contract. Number one, I don't think this is surprising, but Drew Brees ended up being a man of his word. He said all along that he was not going to test the open market, that he was only coming back to New Orleans, and lo and behold, he didn't test the open market. He took a very team-friendly deal and came back to New Orleans. Brees has said over and over he wants to win, and in taking the contract he did, it proves that he's willing to do what he has to do to win, and that's where this contract came in. So when you look at the particulars of this deal, and we don't know how it's structured, but 2 years, $50 million, I've gotten the question a lot today, why would he sign a 2-year contract if he said he's going year by year? We'll wait and see how it's structured, but it's very likely that this is going to be a contract that is void after the first year. So Drew's going to get his $25 million to play quarterback in 2020, and the Saints will be able to kick the rest of the contract down the road and divide it up over however many years there is on the contract. Remember they did this with Nick Fairley a few years back. We've referenced that one, where they signed Nick Fairley on a 1-year prove-it deal, but it was like a 3-year deal that was void after year 1, so they were able to basically spread all of that contract over 3 seasons instead of just 1. That's how the Saints have been very creative with their capology or whatever you want to call it. You know, Kai Hartley's their guy who takes care of a lot of those numbers, and he's done it very well, clearly, and they'll do the same here. So Drew Brees signs a team-friendly deal. Some have said that Brees all along should have been taking less. And I say baloney. I don't care what you do in life. If you're the best, you want to be compensated as the best. If you're the best doctor, you want to be compensated as the best. Or an engineer or a teacher or whatever you do, If you're the best, you want to be paid as such. You shouldn't be expected to take less just because you're good at what you do. So Brees has gotten paid. He's made his money. But at this point, he's committed to saying, whatever I have to do to try to win another championship, he's committed to do, and he's all in on it. And consider this. At $25 million per, as far as a per-year contract, that puts Drew Brees outside of the top 10. And now, depending on how some of these other contracts that will inevitably start to come down the pike, it'll show us where he ultimately lands. But he's outside of the top 10 in annual salary. In Russell Wilson at $35 million leads the way. Ben Roethlisberger at $34, Rodgers at $33.5, same with Jared Goff. Kirk Cousins with his new deals at $33 million. Carson Wentz at $32 million a year. Dak with the franchise tags at $30.1. You understand my point, though? Drew Brees took $25 million. Kirk Cousins got $33 million a year. If Drew Brees wanted to go test the open market, he could have pushed to have the biggest single-year deal in the NFL. I mean, he's sitting here behind Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins and Ryan Tannehill. And, I mean, Jacoby Brissett is under contract at $27.9 this year. Garoppolo, Stafford, Derek Carr's making more money than Drew Brees. I mean, it's stunning when you look at some of these quarterback figures. But that's what Drew Brees did because he wants to win. And good on him for doing it. See if he'll be rewarded for it. Now, what we also know is that the quarterback rooms in the NFC South just got a lot more interesting. The Carolina Panthers today have announced that they've given Cam Newton permission to seek a trade. Cam replied on social media, said, "Stop with the wordplay. I never asked for it. There's no dodging this one. I love the Panthers to death and always will and love you guys. Please do not try and play me or manipulate the narrative and act like I wanted this. You forced me into this. Love." So what we know, though, is Carolina's moving on from Cam Newton. He didn't want to move on, but Carolina's moving on from Cam. And it looks like Teddy Bridgewater is going to be their guy. So that's all the reports right now is that Teddy Bridgewater and the Carolina Panthers are ironing out a 3-year contract that's going to pay him in the neighborhood of $20 million per year. So Chris Mortensen had it early. Others have followed suit. But, again, a 3-year deal, $60 million range. They're working out all the particulars, but it looks like Teddy is going to stay in the NFC South but head over to Carolina. There's 3 parts to the Bridgewater story. One, good for Teddy Bridgewater. This is a guy who had a catastrophic knee injury, cost him almost 2 full seasons, hard work, gratitude, got him back to the NFL. And then when he had his opportunity this year for 5 weeks, he was awesome, and people embraced him and loved him. So good for him. That's a great feel-good story. Number 2 is now we're going to see Teddy Bridgewater against the Saints twice a year. I mean, he's in the same division, and that kind of sucks. And I'd ask the question, do you think Carolina is better with Teddy Bridgewater than they were with Cam Newton? And I don't know that I can answer definitively with the affirmative. Now, they got DJ Moore, and they got Curtis Samuel, and they got Christian McCaffrey. And obviously there's the tie with Joe Brady having been in New Orleans and spent some time with Teddy Bridgewater there in the 2018 season before, of course, Joe Brady came to LSU in 2019. So there's some familiarity there. But how effective will that tandem be? That remains to be seen. And then the other big question is what's next for Cam Newton? And I mean, you look around and you look at teams that have vacancies. Tampa Bay looks like they have a vacancy unless if Tom Brady fills it. The Chargers obviously have a vacancy. The Bears were kicking the tires on Teddy Bridgewater. Are they going to be looking for a free agent? New England obviously now has a vacancy unless if they're committed to Jarrett Stidham. And you look around and you got Tom Brady and Cam Newton and you've likely Jameis Winston. I mean, you got some big name quarterbacks out there on the open market. Phillip Rivers was in that mix as well until we learned today that he's signing with a 1-year deal with Indianapolis. So we're going to keep you posted. The league year officially begins tomorrow in the NFL, but what we know now is Tom Brady won't be back in New England. Drew Brees has agreed to terms with the Saints. Looks like Teddy Bridgewater is headed to Carolina, and Phillip Rivers is in Indianapolis. Cam Newton and Jameis Winston very likely looking for new spots to call home, and Brady's odds out in Vegas are down to the Bucks and the Chargers. Looks like it's going to be one of those two spots for the GOAT to see where he lands in his playing quarterback next season.